Buckingham Palace made a heartbreaking statement just moments ago. Together, Prince William and King Charles have acknowledged the devastating news of Princess Catherine's condition. The public conjectured in whispers for months, but nobody could have guessed the eventual revelation. The country is holding their breath as the terrible reality that can no longer be concealed is causing the family to struggle. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any updates before we delve further into what this actually implies for the royal family. As the official announcement was made public, the monarch and his successor stood side by side in a rare show of solidarity and passion. The weight of what they were going to impart was visible on their faces. This was anything but typical for a palace that takes pride in its stoicism and discipline. The words struck like thunder, even though they were spoken quietly. The course of Catherine's illness has taken an unanticipated and extremely concerning turn. It wasn't a standard update. The illusion of tranquility that the palace had so painstakingly constructed over the previous year was destroyed by this raw, vulnerable revelation. The tone was more than somber. It was profoundly human, urgent, and heartbreaking. William, who is renowned for keeping his cool, appeared rattled, and his voice cracked a little as he thanked the audience for their support, but cautioned that the future was still unclear. Speaking with evident pain, King Charles, who is often thoughtful and aloof in public, referred to Catherine as the family's heart. Beyond the royal walls, those words resonated. This was more than just a king's voice. It was the agonized voice of a father-in-law. According to people close to the matter, he was the one who demanded that the truth be revealed right away to prevent rumors from getting worse. The response was seismic almost immediately. In a matter of hours, thousands of people gathered outside royal homes throughout the United Kingdom, holding signs, lighting candles, and murmuring prayers. Windsor Castle turned into an ocean of silent awe. The entire world froze in disbelief. Celebrities, common people, and international dignitaries all sent messages. Many remember Catherine's kindness, elegance, and quiet power. Globally, news organizations halted their regular programming to report on the shocking revelation. As reporters rushed to get additional information, hospitals connected to the royal family experienced an abrupt increase in media coverage. However, the palace just made a request for strength and seclusion at this unthinkable period, without providing a timeline or other information. It was a unique occasion in the history of the royal family. The stillness that ensued carried more weight than the words that were said. The kind of quiet that indicates everything has changed because it has. What had started out as rumors of recovery had now blossomed into a shared anguish. A country holding onto optimism while getting ready for something much more agonizing. However, what specifically caused this devastating announcement, and why should we comprehend now? We have to go back to the time when everything started to fall apart behind closed doors. It wasn't a headline, it wasn't a picture, there was quiet. The concerns were initially set out by Princess Catherine's withdrawal from public life. Weeks passed with no appearances, no pictures, and no confirmations. Once written off as a normal recuperation, it started to feel like something far darker, something they didn't want the world to know. It all started out quietly. The public was reassured by Kensington Palace that Catherine's surgery went well and that her recuperation will likely take several weeks. However, royal observers are aware of this. This family never allows silence to persist for no apparent cause. There were no updates, no pictures of William visiting the hospital, no information on whether the kids had seen their mother, no assurances, and not even carefully chosen pictures intended to reassure the media in the days following the announcement. The world was left with only mounting doubts after the royal family withdrew behind iron gates, and the weight of worry grew with each one that went unanswered. Normally unrelenting in their search for even the tiniest sight, the press was unable to locate anything. The paparazzi, who are notorious for following royal sites, were unable to capture a single picture of Catherine. Even her regular physicians kept quiet. Unhappiness replaced the whispers. When Prince William started cancelling events with little to no explanation, the pressure increased. He was slated to attend formal events or charity galas on multiple occasions, but he frequently disappeared from the spotlight. When he did show up, fatigue was evident on his face. Aides were told to clear his calendar indefinitely, according to insiders, but no public announcement was made. This was no longer a typical recuperation. There had been a problem. Within the palace walls, whispers started to slowly and fragmentarily emerge. One royal aide apparently acknowledged unexpected difficulties in a private exchange overheard during one occasion. Another stated they're trying to contain the fallout. The palace nevertheless adhered to its message: space, healing, and privacy. However, it started to feel like a cover. Then the first leak appeared. A foreign journalist received a terrifying message from a London clinic employee who insisted on staying nameless. It's not as bad as they claim. Once published, that one statement went viral. The atmosphere changed, notwithstanding the palace's refusal to remark. All of a sudden, the major media started challenging the official narrative. Why were there no images of the recovery? Why had William stopped talking? And why had Catherine disappeared without a trace, when her very being depended on warmth, visibility, and connection? The truth loomed larger than any press release inside the walls of Kensington and the gates of Windsor. There was a change. Something that cannot be changed. The royal family was no longer in charge of optics. The truth was being protected by them. A new, darker reality started to emerge in the public awareness as the prepossessant outside world started to make the connections. This was more than a postponement of recuperation. It was a change in the royal narrative, one that was molded by fragility and terror rather than grace and glamour. Royal observers started to piece together the hints as the veil of secrecy started to unravel. And what they discovered was really concerning. Prince William was more than just a prospective monarch inside the royal gates. He was a husband in need. His close friends claimed that he stopped sleeping and hardly spoke. He was going downhill. And he was unable to resolve the issue diplomatically for the first time in his royal life. This was not a controversy that needed to be contained. He was unable to keep this woman safe. The strain had become intolerable. Every silent moment at Adelaide Cottage was tinged with doubt, and every public inquiry that went unanswered felt like a personal failure. William, who had been taught to repress his feelings and preserve tradition, was overcome by something considerably more powerful than impotence due to royal obligations. His days were filled with lengthy hours spent peering out windows in the hopes of seeing signs of progress and emergency consultations. He was more afraid of what he didn't see in Catherine than what he did. Even their kids couldn't lift the silent tiredness that had replaced her once unwavering vigor. Every step they took seemed like they were walking through fog because of the weight of the silence that had previously filled their home with laughter. However, William's breaking point was caused by the palace's icy refusal to reveal the truth rather than the disease itself. Important updates were still withheld by senior advisors who were determined to control the narrative. They mentioned long-term reputation and public stability, but William had a different perspective. Maintaining the crown's reputation was not the goal here. It was about depriving Catherine of the respect she was due. Arguments broke out behind closed doors. Advisors begged him to hold off, cautioning that any formal acknowledgement of the true severity of the situation would cause panic. William, however, had stopped paying attention. He sent his father a private email in a defiant moment that even Charles was taken aback. There were just 5 words in the topic line: "Silence is not what she deserves." A media frenzy would subsequently result from someone close to the situation leaking that email. However, the message was straightforward, unvarnished, and hard to ignore. William's patience had run out. Press cycles and protocols were no longer important to him. He was concerned about the woman who had supported him through every hardship and was now lying in bed struggling to breathe while everyone wondered why she had vanished. Advisors suggested they staged a picture and attempted to walk him back, make a statement, and create serenity. However, it was too late. William had lost faith in the palace apparatus. He began speaking more candidly to a few chosen reporters, alluding to realities the monarchy wasn't prepared to reveal. His tone, his expression, and the way he left meetings silently all showed how frustrated he was. Then the quiet broke in the middle of March. Catherine's health abruptly deteriorated. Physicians changed their methods. The intensity of the treatment increased. A chilly awareness also rushed through the inner circle of the castle. This was not a short-term situation. It was much worse. The future English queen was in danger, and suddenly the institution's biggest weakness was its natural tendency to protect. And just when everything seemed so uncertain, King Charles takes an unusually daring action that completely alters the palace's plan of action. King Charles has long been regarded as a reticent ruler who is cautious with both his words and his feelings. However, all self-control is destroyed when it comes to Catherine. Charles allegedly smashed his fist on the table and declared, "No more hiding," during an impassioned meeting at Clarence's house. Make the world aware of her struggles. At that moment, the royal command underwent a dramatic change. Charles, surrounded by cautious advisors and constrained by tradition for a long time, had reached his limit. He had seen his son suffer in silence, caught between duty and powerlessness, as the palace waited farther into stillness in an attempt to maintain control over a story that was already falling apart. His secret visit to Adelaide Cottage delivered the last blow. After just 15 minutes at Catherine's bedside, insiders claim Charles was clearly moved. This was a turning point for a man who had perfected the art of regal detachment. His hands were shaking, his face was pale, and it was said that a truth he could no longer conceal with formality was weighing on his heart when he left Windsor that night. He did not see a princess recovering. The future of the family was silently in jeopardy as the mother fought for her life. A fight for dominance broke out behind the palace walls. Charles interrupted Camilla as she tried to urge prudence, recommending that they just provide a carefully phrased update. He apparently gave a stern, definite reaction. And so tonight, the world watches the royal family with heavy hearts and unanswered questions. Behind the historic walls of the palace, a family known for strength, tradition, and quiet resilience is now facing one of the most difficult moments in its modern history. For Prince William, it is not just the weight of the crown that lies ahead. It is the fear of losing the woman who has stood beside him through every chapter of his life. For King Charles, it is the painful reality of watching his family struggle while the entire world waits for answers. And for Catherine, the Princess of Wales, this moment has become more than a royal story. It is the fight of a mother, a wife, and a future queen whose courage has touched millions across the globe. But the biggest question still remains. What truly lies ahead for Catherine and the future of the royal family? For now, the palace asks for privacy, strength, and hope. Yet history has shown that even the most guarded palace secrets eventually find their way into the light. If you want to stay updated on every royal development and the stories unfolding behind palace doors, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.